using it as our kind of expense wallet for reimbursements, since the transaction fees are reasonable. Shaw, I got your camera, but I can still not hear your audio. Yeah, sometimes Discord's challenging to get your audio connected. I don't know if you drop out and drop back in, or if you switch speakers. Let me see, where's the speakers? Oh,
check.
There we go.
Okay, I think it was on some weird push to talk setting, so I just had to change it from that to regular.
Sure.
What's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
Hi, thank you for coming.
Fantastic.
All right, sweet. So I think I kind of heard for a second that like it sounded like there was a good amount of people that have used Terra before, and then maybe like one or two people that hadn't. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it looks like we got some good Terrans here, except for our heretical Ryan, Crystal Gravy.
Yeah. Educate me. Bring me into the fold.
Happy to, sir.
Can I give an intro to you, Shaw, real quick?
Sure.
Okay, I've known Shaw for about a year. He's got me into Terra. I started way back with Bitcoin, but then when I found Terra, I realized that it really solved the problem of the usability of cryptocurrencies by having a stable coin that was stable in value. And so he was the one that kind of got me into it, which was fantastic. But he's got an interesting story. He's worked for he's been involved with Berkeley blockchain way back in the day. He's actually a surgeon, I believe, a nose and throat surgeon, if I'm not mistaken. And he runs the Terra Validator of Orbital Command, which has become one of the more popular community validators on Terra. So we'll dig in, and you guys post your questions. But I think Shaw has a presentation prepared, so I'll turn it over to him, and he can run from there.
Sweet. Thank you very much, Joseph. Yeah, it was actually funny. Joseph kind of leaving out a little bit of what I think is the funny part of the story is, so I started this validator like a year ago, and I started doing like weekly DeFi tutorials every Saturday. We call them TeFi sessions or TeFi tutorials. And one day this dude named Joseph just started popping up and joining our calls, our weekly calls. And it turns out that he had found it not through like our advertising on CT on crypto Twitter, but just like through the meetup group randomly. I think Meetup had suggested to him, hey, you're into this kind of topic, you should check out this meetup. And then he quickly became a Terra scholar and a big contributor to our Saturday TeFi sessions, and it worked out really well. We've done a lot of fun stuff since then together. So like I felt like this was going to be kind of like a group of people of varying familiarity with Terra, and so like I didn't want to prepare too much at like the entry level, but what I'll do is just I'll kind of walk you guys through a little bit about being a Terra validator and talk you through some stuff that I think is interesting about Terra, and then I will super make it interactive. I mean, this is a group of we're like maybe like 10, so please at any time just like stop, interrupt me, and we can kind of make this a little bit more interactive. But let's see, I think you guys can share my screen. I'm gonna get rid of my video here. You guys can still see my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So let's start with so a little bit about Cosmos, I guess. So Cosmos is essentially, I first heard about Cosmos and Tendermint in 2017 when I joined blockchain at Berkeley. I was Joseph was right. I'm a surgeon, but I had moved to the Berkeley area, and I had been following really closely the fact that there was this organization on the campus at Berkeley that was very active called Blockchain at Berkeley. And so when I got there, I essentially applied to become a member of their student blockchain association because I was taking some extension classes. I happened to be taking Mandarin in the evenings, and so I had a student ID. And it worked out really well because I got to be involved in a super active student organization about crypto, and they got to say, "Hey, one of our members is a surgeon, so that's how cool we are." And so it's kind of a fun thing for both of us. But one of the guys there, Sunny Agarwal, who's one of the founders of blockchain at Berkeley, you guys may know him or may know the name because he's actually the founder of Osmosis, the DEX, and it's its own Cosmos chain as well. But he was kind of talking about this thing that he was working on called Cosmos and Tendermint, and it was like the internet of blockchains, and it was basically going to create a family of delegated proof of stake chains that also connected other blockchains like Ethereum and Bitcoin to each other. And I kind of kept a loose eye on that. But if you guys have really been following the Cosmos ecosystem, you realize that a lot of people started adopting this technology because it was actually a really good proof of stake technology. And so right now there is something like 42 different chains, Cosmos SDK chains. The biggest ones you're probably very familiar with. So Binance chain is actually a Cosmos chain, not Binance Smart Chain, which is, as you guys know, like basically a fork of the Ethereum code. But the like Binance main chain is a Cosmos coin or Cosmos chain. Terra is the second biggest Cosmos-based blockchain. And then Crypto.com is a Cosmos chain. Atom or Cosmos itself is a Cosmos chain. There's a ton of them that you probably have heard of and just maybe didn't even know that it was a Cosmos SDK chain. So Thorchain is one. Osmosis is its own Cosmos chain. KuCoin has its own chain.
Shaw, I wasn't sure if you were sharing your screen. We don't see your presentation.
Oh, you don't see anything. What do you see?
We see ourselves.
Well, that's not exciting. Let's see. To me, it says I'm streaming, but maybe I'm just streaming the Discord channel.
Discord, yeah.
Discord. Let me see if I can change that.
I also do know that there are some chains that run an augmented form of Tendermint. Like Polygon is like an augmented Tendermint form. Tezos, I think, like changed their consensus mechanism to go to like Tender Bake, which is like another augmented form of Tendermint.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really profound, like how wide-reaching the Tendermint consensus mechanism is throughout all of crypto. But these are just some of the chains, like Secret, Oasis Network. Anchor is not its own chain, so I would argue that that's incorrect. But Fetch is a Cosmos chain. Persistence Injective, you guys have probably heard of that. Akash Network is its own. Band Protocol is its own Cosmos chain. So really a ton of projects in crypto are using the Cosmos SDK and Tendermint consensus. This is kind of a similar thing. This is called Map of Zones, and it kind of shows you all the Cosmos networks. And so Cosmos activated IBC or inter-blockchain communication, I don't know, like somewhere last year. And so many of the chains have started enabling that feature and connecting to each other. And this graph kind of shows you the by chain how much IBC volume each one is doing. And it's a pretty fun interactive site to kind of see how the different Cosmos chains that have enabled IBC are connected to each other. You could see Terra here and some of the other ones we were just talking about. So definitely a cool little explorer to check out. I think another super interesting stat that people are sleeping on a little bit is how much value is locked in Terra. So Terra has quickly become the number 2 chain behind Ethereum as far as total value locked, which is pretty impressive given like how quickly it has grown over the last year. So you can see that Ethereum has about 121 billion dollars in total value locked, and Terra has about 30 billion locked. And then the next biggest one is BSC at 13. So there's kind of a huge jump there. And then you get to Avalanche and Solana. So the funny thing is projects that have had such what I would say is like bigger hype and more notoriety within the crypto markets, like Avalanche and Solana especially, don't even have, a third of the TVL of Terra. Now, a lot of that is Anchor Protocol, and we can talk about that a little bit too. It's one of the predominant dApps on Terra. It's like a savings and borrowing and lending platform. I'm trying to remember why I threw this tab in here. Maybe it was to say, I think the other thing people are kind of not realizing is that Terra is now a top 10 blockchain by total market cap. And the crazy thing is that I've watched both Terra climb the crypto market cap rankings, and then also its stablecoin UST has also climbed the rankings. It's now the number 4 stablecoin, I believe. So it's just behind Tether, USDC, and Binance USD, but it has a market cap of about 16.6 billion. At the beginning of last year, that market cap was closer to about like 1 to 2 billion. So it's by far grown the fastest of all stablecoins. Joseph asked me to talk a little bit about running a validator on Terra, and so I'm happy to kind of walk people through that a ton, but I think that is I think I'll kind of go over some highlights, and then if you guys have some more specific questions, happy to kind of talk about those things. So I had run a validator for some other networks over the past few years. I started in crypto just investing, and then after a few years, I was like, this is fun. I like investing. I'm making money, but I want to like do more. I want to contribute. I want to start a business. And so I started running a validator on some different networks back in 2018. And at one point I was like, me and a couple colleagues were running validators on like, I don't know, 7 or 10 different networks to varying degrees of making money. But then I kind of got, they become less lucrative, and I got a little bit tired of doing those businesses. And so I kind of stopped almost everything. But one of my friends, when we discovered Terra about a year and some change ago, was like, hey, let's start a validator on Terra. I was not excited about it because I know it's a lot of work and often does not pay much money. But he kind of twisted my arm. And then we started Validator. For the first 6 months, we weren't making anything. In fact, we were losing money. But the whole idea was like, if Terra does grow the way we think that it has the capability of growing to, then this could eventually become quite lucrative. So this is a block explorer that shows the different validators on the Terra network. All Cosmos chains come by default with, I think, a set of 100 active validators. And some of those chains have kind of enabled more validators to make it a little bit more distributed and decentralized. Terra did that some while ago, maybe like a year ago. They upped it from 100 to 130. So there is 130 validators in the active validator set for Terra. Now, how much you make entirely depends on how much Luna is staked or delegated to you. So, for example, at the very bottom here, this team Pixie has about 115,000 Luna delegated to them. Now, Luna has a staking APR of somewhere around like 8% right now, and validators can charge whatever commission they want. This validator is charging 1.1% commission, which is actually very, very low. The average is probably about 5%, and some charge 10%, and some weird ones that are not basically saying, we don't want you to delegate with us, charge 100% and take all of your staking rewards. But so, for example, we are, I think, as of now, Orbital Command, which is the validator that I run and that Joseph is a part of, has about 2.2 million Luna delegated to it. And we charge a 4% commission. At today's current Luna price, that equates to us making somewhere around like, I don't know, maybe like $35,000 to $40,000 a month in like Luna and UST rewards. So we've gotten to a pretty lucrative state, but like I said, it was for the first 6 months we had trouble getting anyone to delegate to us, and we were not making that much money because Luna price was also very low when we started as well. It varies dramatically. So like the biggest validator, has 16 million Luna delegated to them. I mean, you'd have to do the math on how much US dollar value that is, but that's like a massive amount. I think our 2 million is something like $35 million worth of, no, I don't know. I haven't done the math on this, but these are massive, massive numbers, right? Because this is 2.2 million times whatever the price of Luna is right now. So like $120. So way more than I think I just said. But so these guys are probably making a disgusting amount of money monthly, but it just depends on, like if you can get people to delegate to you. I would argue that the validator business, for those of you that have like not done that before, is kind of like two-sided business. One side is running the tech infrastructure. You need to kind of run servers that process the transactions and produce blocks when your turn pops up to produce blocks. And then the other half of the business is basically like a social media / marketing business where you're trying to promote the chain and create tools and create education and awareness and basically give the community a reason to delegate through you because you are providing some value to the network. Yeah, I'll kind of stop there. And if you guys have any questions, we can kind of pop into some of that stuff, either about validating or about Terra in general. And then I can definitely walk you guys through some of my favorite projects on Terra and some of the dApps that I think are pretty cool if you're kind of new to Terra, or if you are familiar with Terra but haven't looked at all the dApps yet. I can show you some of the really exciting ones in my opinion.
Yeah, that is super interesting. And that was what was remarkable to me, coming from a background of proof of work networks where, the owners of the coin don't really make anything. And then the miners make a lot of money, right? And there's this huge competition to burn energy and turn, work into heat, basically. But in proof of stake networks, that all goes back to the coin holders and to the validators. But the validators are only charging like 4%, so they really don't make that much money, or at least they didn't used to. And I think it creates this virtuous cycle where you have validators trying to compete for delegations and trying to provide value back to the community. So instead of the validators, just burning energy and turning it into heat to warm up the planet or whatever, they're actually, like I know Orbital Command does a ton of work with Twitter Spaces and with interesting websites and statistics and Telegram bots and all types of, you guys are putting on a conference in Austin. And so I think it's really powerful how, proof of stake is not only better environmentally, but it's also valuable to the community and creates this virtuous cycle where there's, the validators are giving back value to the owners of the token to try to win their trust and their delegations. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny that I never really kind of the way you framed it is interesting. I never really thought about it that way, but I guess that's the reality. Like I've thought about it as like from a business side, like these are the things that I need to do or we need to do to like get people to delegate to us. But, you're right. I mean, it's definitely different than like proof of work because I mean, the impetus in proof of work is to just get a higher hash rate, right? And that's how you do better. Not necessarily doing anything that would otherwise, create value to the ecosystem or designate you as a better steward of the system per se. Versus, I think in delegated proof of stake chains, if you are a validator, that's what people want to see.
One question I had is, if you delegate with a validator, is there a chance that validator can steal your Luna, or can they, claim your Luna? And by the way, I did the math. I think 2.2 million at $100 a pop is like 240 or 224 million dollars.
There you go. So it's a lot a lot of value that's being delegated through us. Yeah, so there's not a way that the validator can do anything with like steal your Luna. It is entirely still your, like the validator doesn't have access to your private keys or to your Luna. Your Luna is all still controlled through the individual's private keys and account. Let's say if there was a validator that wanted to be malicious, like the worst thing they could do is stop producing blocks, and that could cause. I mean, there's all kinds of different attacks, I guess, just like there is in proof of work, but I think kind of like the most, like I think the thing with the actual real potential is they could stop producing blocks, and if that happens, then at first your validator gets jailed, meaning the system like identifies this validator when its turn in the cycle came up to produce blocks, did not produce blocks, and so like if that happens, I think several, like if it happens once or twice, like the network just kind of says whatever, but if it keeps happening for enough consecutive times, then the system will jail your validator, essentially take it out of the rotation of producing blocks. And then until you have to kind of, get your validator out of jail before the system will, let you put you back in the cycle or the rotation. And if you're in jail for too long, then the system will slash you, which means it will penalize you a fraction of the Luna that you have delegated to the network. And that includes the people that are delegating through you as well. Now, it's a super tiny fraction. I think when the slashing occurs, it's like 0.01%, but everybody loses that that's delegated to you. So you want to like choose a validator that's going to act responsibly, because you could potentially lose some of your Luna staked through that validator. And then there's also kind of like there's a period in some situations where like if you're delegated to a validator and they get jailed and slashed, like until the validator corrects the issue, you can't redelegate away from the delegator. So you're kind of like, or for the validator, so you're kind of stuck if you're delegating to someone or a validator that gets into these issues until they at least unjail themselves. I think there's eventually a time period where you can, regardless of what the validator does, redelegate it. But for a while, you might get stuck in like a 21-day unbonding period if you can't redelegate away from them.
Great, thanks. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So we've had some like small conversations about creating some kind of ATX DAO validator, for kind of all the reasons you mentioned. And you said you run validators on multiple networks. Do you have any recommendations for us to look for validators, or are you getting delegations from the foundation or from the team? And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good idea. I mean, if you guys are, I don't know how big ATX DAO is at this point. I know it's been growing and you guys are super active. And also congrats on, sounds like the South by Southwest stuff that you guys did was really well attended. So congrats on that. I think it's a really good idea to start your own validator. It's not very hard. As far as the Terra network goes, so we don't have any delegation from like I'm assuming you mean like the Terraform Labs team or like the Luna Foundation Guard Foundation. We don't have any delegations from them, but a lot of validators do. They started a program called the Terra Delegation Program, or the TDP. I don't know, maybe they started this like 8 or 9 months ago, and basically they said like, hey, if you are a validator and you meet like these requirements that we set up, like you have to have a testnet validator and you have to, do X, Y, and Z with your validator. And if you kind of meet all those criteria, then we meaning Terraform Labs, will delegate a big chunk of Luna to you. And they started doing that. They're basically, anyone that's getting that program is getting delegated to them like maybe 1 million Luna right now. So they did this because they wanted to really encourage people to run validators in the Terra network and increase the Nakamoto coefficient for like the network. And I think to some degree it's been a successful program. So long story short is we don't have that right now. We kind of were a part of that for a while, and then we started. I think we did enough social media stuff, and we've been an active enough community validator that we got past that 1 million that they'll delegate to you. And I think once you get above a certain amount, then the program that you're not applicable to that program anymore. So it's kind of a good news that we graduated, but I think you should definitely apply for that. The only caveat to getting into that is like they will only allocate that to you if you're already in the active set of validators. And if we kind of go back to that chart, to get into the active set now at this point requires at least 115,000 Luna. So so it's kind of like a little bit of a big moat to get up into the top 130 so that you can qualify to get that delegation from TFL. Apart from that, I mean, you guys, I think, are like well positioned with your validator because, hey, you have this network of people already that are part of your ATX DAO. So, you know, theoretically, like everybody in the ATX DAO, if you guys started your own validator, would theoretically, you know, delegate to you guys. So you already have like this big pool of people to reach. That's probably a growing pool of people, and have those people delegate to you. And then you're already very active, right? So I think it wouldn't be hard for you guys to do some of the other stuff that, like, say, Orbital Command or some of the other active validators do, like host, you know, Discord discussions like this, host Twitter spaces, organize events. I think if you kind of showed the community that you guys are not just running some servers, but actually like becoming stewards of the network and promoting the Terra ecosystem and growing and educating the Terra ecosystem, then I think more and more people would delegate to you. So I think you guys are like positioned primely to do something like that.
Ruan has 115,000 Luna, so no sweat.
There you go.
I wish, yeah.
Easy peasy.
There was.
Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say there was one comment in the chat from Kyle. You could elaborate on the source of staking rewards from transaction fees, other proof of stake blockchains being primarily protocol inflation. So
Yeah.
I think he's referring to the transaction fees on Terra and how that feeds back into the stakers, because they provide security to the network, and so they get rewarded by a portion of all transaction fees. I think that's what was being referred to there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the unique differences between like Terra and most other proof of stake networks is like most of them create their staking rewards through token inflation. So like Solana, Avalanche, like, you know, most of the networks that you think of that are proof of stake chains already, like I mean, even Ethereum, right? Ethereum's staking rewards come from token inflation, even though it's not nearly as massive as some of these other chains. Like, I think I was watching a video on Solana yesterday, and it said that like there is no max token supply, and that it's like it's super inflated, but it's going to decrease by 15% every year for the next few years, you know, and eventually kind of find I don't know, some resting point or equilibrium point where it's not, you know, dramatically inflating every year. But Terra does not have any token inflation per se. We could talk about Luna specifically because it's a what's called an elastic supply token. So the token supply can contract or expand depending on the demand for UST. And I can go into that mechanism if people want to know about that or don't already know about that yet. But yeah, all the staking rewards comes from network transaction fees. Those all kind of go into the staking rewards, so that it doesn't really necessarily, it's not a set rate of inflation for Luna. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, it produces kind of a floor price for Luna, you know, and I think that's one reason that it has a better chance than other stablecoins of succeeding, is because there actually is value that's accrued to the backing of the asset. So it's pretty powerful. Again, the tokenomics in Luna are what attracted to me to the ecosystem, and there's really a lot of great, not only technology, but economics behind the ecosystem. So it's really interesting.
So I'm sure a question you see often is maybe, hey, like from users is who's a good validator? Who should I delegate to? Is there a place or like a spreadsheet, maybe for Terra, where you can see all of that information? Maybe like who runs infrastructure stuff, like relayers,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah, it's a great question, and there really isn't. Um, yeah, there is not anything that exists right now. I think I saw one tool like maybe a month or two back, and I don't know if they ever completed it, but I kind of saw like an alpha of a tool. I'd have to go and find it again for you. But it's basically this guy looked at some of these like base parameters for a lot of different validators. I think he started like maybe with Cosmos chain, like Atom itself, and then like said, okay, of all the validators, like who's been participating in governance, like what percentage of the governance votes have this validator actually voted in? Like, is this person running a relayer? I don't know. Like they kind of basically came up with like some series of like at least objective criteria. I think some of this stuff is a little bit subjective when you talk about like, okay, what is this validator, like a quote unquote good community validator? Are they hosting Twitter spaces and things like that, right? That's a lot more subjective. But I think this guy came up with some criteria that were objective, applied it to Atom, and then also kind of started building it for Terra too. But there's not any great, that's like the closest thing that I've seen to something like what you're describing. And it's kind of I think a necessary like tool that just hasn't been created yet. There's a void there. So if you want to make that tool, I think that would be super valuable for the community, but there's no such thing right now. So it tends to be word of mouth. I mean, not word of mouth, but like, like someone asking on crypto Twitter, hey, who are the good validators, and then people like, throw out their favorites and give reasons for it. Um,
yeah, I'm actually doing something similar for Stargaze to try and survey all of the validators to get. So that's kind of what do you think is important for validators, like infrastructure stuff? Like I know the IBC relay is really important and the governance stuff is, but like, is there any other like hard infrastructure stuff or like some of the main things you think people should be considering when supporting a validator?
Yeah. No, this is a great question, and this is going to poke holes a little bit of the fact that like I'm not really super technical. I'm more like the business slash social media guy.
And the idea, man, everything's good. Yeah, more experience than we do here.
Yeah. So I think I would say like from the technical side of stuff, I think the big things that I would say or that I know of are, so there are on the Terra network, there's probably at least 5 or 6 validators, if not more, that are using a third party to run their nodes. It's called Bison Trails, and they offer that service to like a bunch of different networks, and Terra is one of them. And so like to me, that is like kind of it defeats the purpose of like having different validators and validators that are in different countries and resiliency of the network, because if Bison Trail makes a mistake with running their validators, then like you lose a bunch at the same time, and that has and does happen on the Terra network, and I've seen it happen on other networks too. Like for example, so another resiliency point I think is like someone did a study where they looked at what because a lot of people that run validators will not buy the hardware themselves and like put it install these bare metal machines into a data center. They just run on cloud servers, and so like you have so many that run on AWS, right, on Amazon, and then there's a bunch that run on Hetzner out of Germany, which is like maybe the second biggest one. And we've seen, if you're in the validator business, we've seen times where like Amazon, AWS goes down briefly, and then like you get this like 30% of the validators on a network go down because they're all using cloud servers from AWS, right? And usually it's brief, but it's still like is a detriment to decentralization, right? And so for those reasons, like we specifically chose to use. We had bare metal servers for a while, but it is way easier to run this business, like especially if you're not sure if you're going to be making money at first, to run it on cloud servers. And so we specifically chose like providers in different countries that are way less known and and less used, so that we're providing that a little bit of decentralization and not one single point of failure. So I think that's important. The relayer thing you said, there's this thing like running an LCD, and that gets a little bit more technical, but I think some of the validators are going out of their way to run their own LCDs as opposed to using the ones that like TFL runs. I've seen other validators run like a snapshot service. So like if, some validators, if their node goes down and they need to like resync with the blockchain, they can just grab a snapshot that's being provided by one of the other validators, which is a quick way to, restart your node without kind of replaying the whole blockchain from the beginning again. Those are some of the things, like from a technical standpoint, that I would say I'd seen some validators do better than others, and that creates technical value.
Cool. So you guys are running your validator with your own hardware, like locally?
So we are not. So we kind of found the happy medium. So before I definitely have run validators off of bare metal before, out of data centers, and we did that for a while. And we've kind of determined that, in my experience, I've determined like the best happy medium is kind of this in between thing, where you like invest in your own bare metal and have a data center that you put the machines in and have to go in and maintain them at times. But on the other end of the spectrum, I think is like the cloud servers, where it's just entirely cloud server based and you're using AWS. There's an in between. So some providers will offer you like basically dedicated machines that they run that isn't like cloud server based, if that makes any sense. So you basically like contract with one of these providers, and they provide you bare metal machines that are your dedicated machine, but you just don't own the hardware or maintain it. They do. Does that make sense? That's what we're using.
Okay, got you. Thanks a lot.
One thing that was really interesting is that we have a couple of people from Google in our ATX DAO. I think Galvin, that's on, actually is working for Google, but they are trying to provide infrastructure services to validators. For example, providing like snapshots of the blockchain or maybe reliable hardware. So it's kind of interesting that these cloud providers are realizing the value and the long-term value of these nodes and trying to provide extra value add on top of that. So we'll see where that goes, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and if you guys are, really serious, like if you guys get more serious about starting your own validator, Orbital Command, my team would love to kind of, help you guys get started. Whatever you guys need, definitely ping us, and we can share more specific information, because I do think it's a good idea.
I have a question.
Yep.
Yeah. So I know you were saying that, on, let's say, an AWS outage day and 30% of the validators go down.
Yeah.
Is there a way for the person who's deciding who to throw their lots in with can know what the type of server is? Like, is that a metric that's being shown to the people that might be staking?
Yeah. So a couple points. So that's an exaggeration. I wouldn't say like 30% of the validators went, but like it is like multiple validators go down. There's no direct way to see that, but I think what happens is the people that like have kind of looked at this extensively use a combination of like, they use some kind of combination of like data and like simultaneous outages to kind of basically guess that you're using Amazon, but I don't think there's a way to like 100% know that you're using. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I just I'm curious if maybe people advertise that as like a market differentiation point for determining who to stake with.
Yeah, I don't know if it's necessary. So actually, I can tell you, like, I don't think people advertise that per se, because it's not like the unfortunate reality of like proof of stake chains is like most people that like buy tokens and like stake to validators don't know these ins and outs and these nitty gritties of like being a validator. They don't know that it's important that your validator is not using something like Amazon, where a lot of them are, or using a service like Bison Trails to even run the nodes. Like, unfortunately, most people in crypto don't know or care about that. And so it doesn't become the most sexy selling point when like most people don't even know what that means, or I think unfortunately a lot of people in crypto don't really value decentralization as much as some of us that say are involved in a DAO, or have been involved in
Right.
proof of stake networks do. So it's just one of those things that people don't really look at as much. I think it would be a selling point to the top 10% of like people that understand decentralized networks, but like to the 90% that don't really understand the
Gotcha.
meaning.
And so what those other 90%, let's say, are actually making their decisions based on is kind of this chart that you're showing right now. Like, what's my return potential? How big is this validator? And what are they doing in socials? Essentially,
Yeah.
is like goodwill. Okay.
Yeah, not even. I would say the socials less. Like, unfortunately, one of the things that delegates, that decides that is the bottom line. And there's just so many people that look at like, oh, this validator has like lower commissions. I'm gonna go with this, which is a really bad way to look at things, but it is. And then another thing that happens is like validators will promise, like, hey, if you delegate to us, we'll give you an airdrop of like X token, like. So people kind of just chase the money, unfortunately. Um, I
I
was sad to,
understand it. It's
yeah.
fine.
No, it's
I,
the sad. It's sad. It's sad. I think people don't value, you know, like decentralized as they should, and part of that is on. I think the validators and groups like us, like to emphasize and educate to people why it's so important to distribute.
right.
I think there's other people that all put all their eggs in one basket, and I'm definitely a believer. Like if you own Luna and you have it delegated, you should consider delegating it to multiple validators. You spread your risk around, right? If one of them gets slashed or jailed, you're not going to lose, rewards or get slashed with your total balance, and then it just kind of helps to decentralize the network too. So
Nice. Like a validator index fund.
yeah, exactly. There's actually some stuff that does that too. Like here I can share. One of the apps that I like a lot is called Stater Labs, and they basically created a service that does just that. They like basically made a bunch of baskets. So if you go to pools, so they're a app that you can stake through, and you can go to their pools, and they kind of made like three pools. One is like the blue chip pool, which they includes a set of validators that they feel are like, I don't know, quote unquote blue chip validators that maybe run on multiple networks and have a history of that. And then they kind of made a community basket, or validators that are very active in the community, and that the community actually voted into this basket. And so we're in that because we're one of the most active community validators. And then they did another one of validators that have or promise an airdrop. And so some people like to delegate to that.
Brilliant.
But
That's so cool. I love it in crypto when you're like, riffing on a topic and you're like, man, it'd be really great if, and then someone just like you did is like, actually somebody already built it and you can use it today and it's awesome.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So
Yeah.
in that same spirit, I'm going to ask a follow-up question.
Yep.
Is there a metric of decentralization in the sense that like, I can look at a number of like, percent yield or something and be like, oh, I want to go with that guy because that number's higher. Is there a number that, kind of boils down decentralization? I know it's kind of hard and nebulous to do that, but like, is anybody even trying?
Yeah, I think that thing that I mentioned earlier, like that Nakamoto coefficient, is something that measures,
Okay, yeah.
tries to measure like the decentralization or quantify that to some degree. I don't know. Am I still sharing my screen? I don't know.
Yes, you
So
are. Yeah, Balaji's.
yes, maybe
Yeah.
part of it. I don't know. I don't know if someone's like actually like done like looked at different,
Right.
created an extensive kind of series of metrics, but I think that's the only thing that I know of.
Yeah, let's get that Nakamoto coefficient in, a column right next to all the other, valuable pieces of information on that chart you were sharing earlier. And then maybe people start to, they can't value something they don't see right next to
Sure.
APY.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good question. I mean, I think the Nakamoto coefficient is used to quantify like one blockchain compared to another. Like they'll say, oh, the Terra, the Nakamoto coefficient for Terra is this versus the one for like Solana is this, right? But I I think what you could do for Terra is like you could look at I think some people have looked at if you have 130 validators, right, that are in the active set, and if you wanted to have like the best distribution that you could, it would mean that each one would have a voting power of 0.7%. And you could see that like the top one has a voting power of 5.1% of the network, right? So that's like way, way larger than what the distribution should be. We're kind of, look, I don't mean to brag, but we're kind of at the sweet spot right now, like maybe the perfect the perfect amount delegated to us. But yeah, and then I would say that these guys have not enough delegated to them, to spread stuff around. But that would be an interesting, number to put next to everyone too. It'd be like these guys are below the ideal, coefficient, and these guys are way above it. So consider not delegating any more to them.
That's a really good idea. Thanks for this presentation. I feel like I've been fast-tracked. I got the religion today. Thank you, guys.
So, one, I just wanted to make an introduction, and we can have a follow-up meeting on this. But I know that Terra and Orbital Command are coming to Austin in June for the Terra DApp Expo, and we have Siki on the call, who's our head of partnerships. We had Mason, who's head of marketing. And so there might be some ways that we could, work together with Terra or work together with Orbital Command. So we'll have to follow up with that later. I just wanted to make that introduction. And if you have any ideas about, if you're having a panel that maybe we could get some people to sit on about DAOs, or if you want us to teach a workshop, ATX DAO has a lot of different chains represented. And so I know it's a Terra-focused conference, but maybe there's some interest in general trends in the ecosystem, or smart contracts on other ecosystems, or running DAOs, of course, is a cross-chain, topic. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
No. I'm glad you're making the introduction. And I did want to talk to you guys about this really briefly, and I can, rap to you guys for like 2 seconds. But basically, one of the things that we decided we wanted to do as a validator is Terra is, a top 10 coin by market cap, but hasn't had a standalone conference. They've had a couple like small exclusive events, but no big conference. And so we were like, hey, we can do something like that and really like make the focus of it all the decentralized applications or dApps that are being built on Terra. So we said, hey, let's do that. And then we heard consensus was going to Austin, and Austin is my favorite city in the country. So I was like, you guys, let's plan a conference in Austin. And that's what we've done. Can you guys see my screen still?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, we were kind of shooting for like 1,000 people. And we were shooting for maybe like 30 or 40 dApps on Terra. And I could tell you like that we are still like more than 2 months out from the event, and we have about 50 dApps that are coming that have committed, and we have a waiting list. And they're mostly Terra, but we didn't, even though it's called Terra DApp Expo, like I'm a believer in like a multi-chain universe, right? And I still have large holdings in like Bitcoin, ETH, and other things. And so like, even though I'm really excited about Terra and I run a validator on it, but we just wanted to do something that would really help to highlight the dApps that are being built on Terra. So that's why we named it that. It's going to be at, I don't know, you guys might be familiar with this conference center that's on the campus of UT, and looks super cool. So we're excited. We're going to have not only the big DApp Expo, we're going to have several workshop rooms and like an amphitheater as well, a really cool NFT museum. We're going to have a couple speed dating sessions. So like one for projects that are looking for funding that want to build on Terra or other networks, where they can sign up on one side, and then like angel investors or VCs or small family funds can sign up on the other side. And then you kind of just do a 2-minute elevator pitch. We ding the bell and you switch to the next group to hopefully find some funding for some projects or some ideas that are early stage. Similar thing for developers. So, I know a lot of people that I meet and talk to in this space are like, have like, day jobs or slave jobs, as I like to call them, and like want to and want to switch into Web3 full time. And so like we're gonna do a developer speed dating thing too, where you can kind of sign up if you're a dev and you want to like just kind of meet a bunch of different projects in a really short time frame and like see if maybe you're a good fit to start working for them part time or maybe full time. And then like a gaming room where you can play some blockchain games that are being launched on Terra. I'm not going to go super into detail, but I'll tell you that, yeah, like I said, we started with the goal of maybe 30 or 40 dApps and we're at 50. I mean, basically every major dApp on Terra is coming to this event. This is just like half of them because we can't populate the slide fast enough. But I think it'll be a really fun opportunity for anyone in ATX DAO to kind of learn more about Terra and actually meet the teams and get more involved if they want to. I would love for ATX DAO to play a big role, and part of the reason that I'm really excited about Austin for this event is because I know, I've known Joseph for a while now, and I knew he was really active in ATX DAO, and so I was like, okay, we got to tie into that community already. But I would love if you guys want to do like some panels on any topic that you want. I think that would be fantastic. Happy to work with you guys to really, make it an event where you guys can get a lot out of it and have a big presence if you want. So, and maybe even grow the ATX DAO through this event too. If you guys want to have a booth, I think we can make space for like, ATX DAO booth, and you can kind of recruit for the ranks of ATX DAO and just kind of, maybe even make partnerships with some of like the flagship dApps on Terra too. I don't know if that's something that ATX DAO does, but at least networking with some of these flagship dApps on Terra, I think it'd be a good opportunity.
Yeah, Shaw, thanks for this. This is great. I'm the head of partnerships. I'm Sicky on Discord. I just sent you a friend request, but yeah, we definitely would love to join. And I know Joseph's been talking to some folks. I don't know if it was yourself or others about maybe having a booth there. So that definitely sounds like something we'd want to try to do.
Awesome.
Would love for you to come to our event as well. We're going to be throwing another banger the weekend of consensus. So should be a lot of fun, and would love to maybe riff with you on the side of other ways that we could try to work together. I love it. Yeah, it sounds super exciting.
Sicky, what date is your event? Just so I know.
We are finalizing the venue and the date, so TBD, but we're working on hopefully the 10th, that Friday.
Yeah.
But it's moving target right now.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. We could even like kind of cross promote. We could definitely advertise that at our event and vice versa. So
where are you based right now? Are you in down in Miami or?
No, I made the move. So I'm based out of Puerto Rico these days, but
Nice.
I'm in Barcelona right now. I came for I missed the Avalanche conference, but I came for Blockchain Week. I went to like the Cello conference, which was actually pretty cool. And then now I'm just enjoying the sights.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Love Barcelona.
It's such a cool city. It's my first time, so I'm enjoying it.
Are you still doing medical stuff?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had been all the way up until about 6 months ago. And then, I don't know, I mean, the DeFi stuff started going crazy and Terra was blowing up, and it just became, I basically decided, let me take like a 6-month sabbatical and just focus on crypto and DeFi. And I was supposed to start back up this month, but it kind of, the thing that I'd lined up fell through. And so now I'm not crying over it. So my sabbatical is being extended, and I'm actually pretty happy about it. So.
There's a funny story that at TFI Alpha last year, Shaw got kicked off the stage by Do Kwon. So that's one of his claims to fame.
What's the story? Yeah.
I was being interviewed by the Terabytes team. Like they were live streaming the event, and they were like started interviewing me, and then like 30 seconds into talking to me, like they're like, "Oh, Do Kwon is here," and they're like, "Okay, Shaw, it was great having you on. You got to leave now." And then Do Kwon bumped me, so it was pretty funny.
Hey, also, it looks like one of our community members, Andrew, will kind of put up a little dashboard for your validator if you want to have a look at the live chat.
Yeah, speaking of data analytics, so this is he actually does this for his job, And he, on the fly, during our call, just made a dashboard of orbital command specific data, like total delegation, unique delegators. So awesome.
Oh,
Thanks for that.
awesome. That's super cool. Wait, how do I get to it? I'm a Discord noob.
It's in the live chat voice channel. I can DM it to you also.
Okay. Yeah, maybe do that. Sorry, I feel old sometimes when it comes to Discord. How do you get this thing to work?
Thanks for that, and Drill.
Yeah, no worries. It was super easy. So.
Very cool. Hopefully it looks good. Hopefully it's favorable.
Hopefully.
I know that orbital command has grown a ton, and so I don't see an upward trend in this chart. So I'm kind of curious about the data. But I know Zion sends out updates on orbital command. They're always reaching new benchmarks. Any other questions before we wrap it up? If not, thank you so much, Shah, for jumping on. This has been fantastic. And thank you to everybody who's attended. This will be posted to our YouTube channel for anyone that wants to tune in, catch up later. Anything else, Shah, before we wrap it up?
No, it's a pleasure speaking to you guys. I love, I'm a huge fan of DAOs, and I love what you guys are doing. So keep up the good work. I feel like we have a lot of work to do as far as like developing the concept and application of DAOs, and I feel like you guys are on the forefront of that. So tip my hat off to you guys. It's awesome.
Oh, I have one actually final question real quick. You said you get about, I don't know how transparent your warning are able to be, but you get about 40 grand essentially in Luna and UST. Could you talk about like how that's being spent, like how much you restake back into the system, how much you spend on expenses?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And we actually, for a while, were publishing a transparency report every month. And that kind of outlined exactly how much we made that month and like what we were spending stuff on. And then it just kind of seemed like nobody really cared and was reading them. And so my partners were like, hey, let's stop doing this. And I was like, no, guys, this is good for transparency. This is what blockchain's all about. But it just kind of fell to the wayside. So it's, I would say like obviously I'm probably biased, but I would say of like most of the validators on Terra, I feel like we spend, we're in the top 10% for sure of like reinvesting into the ecosystem. So we started just two people, like me and one of my best friends started the Validator, and we have grown the Validator to now we are like around 10 people, and we actually have one intern, so we're like more like 11 people. So the team has grown massively. We're probably one of the bigger teams that's like not one of the validators that run, there's some companies that are like Validator as a business and they're like huge and they run a Validator on like 50 different networks, like any network they can, and we're not one of those. Like we actually only run our Validator on Terra, and we consciously made that decision. We've talked about maybe starting a Validator on Osmosis as well, because there's so much interplay between those two, and then maybe starting a relayer between the two, but we haven't done that yet because we really want to focus on Terra. But yeah, so a lot of that is gone. A lot of our profit, or I'd say revenue, goes into compensating these team members that we've been adding on to do different things. So like, for example, we have one guy who has been doing an incredible job of like hosting Twitter spaces for Terra dApps that want to get more exposure and coverage and recognition for what they're doing. So we probably host like maybe on average like 4 Twitter spaces a week. So much so that like dApps specifically come to us and are like, hey, can Orbital Command, we want to like, we're launching a new product, or we're a new dApp and we want to get more exposure. Can you guys host a Twitter space for us? In fact, Anchor Protocol, which is, the biggest dApp on Terra for sure by volume locked, like they've come to us and asked us to host Twitter spaces for them as well. We are spending money on this conference that we're launching in Terra. Like, in fact, probably, I think when all is said and done, we're probably going to have spent at least I would say close to $500,000 on this event that we're doing in Austin. Obviously, that's not all our money. Like we're getting a lot of sponsorship money from dApps that are coming, but we've been making our infrastructure more robust as time has gone on too, as our revenue has increased. So adding more redundancy to our servers, so that if our primary validator goes down, then automatically kicks into our backup validator. And what else?
The Discord. Don't forget the Discord.
And the Discord, yeah, Joseph spearheaded our Discord that now has like 3,000 people in it, and we have moderators there from all over the world that are basically helping people with basic questions about Terra and spend countless hours. One of my buddies told me that, I don't know, Joseph, is this accurate? But Manny said like some of the moderators are getting like 2,000 questions, or pinged like 2,000 times a day with questions and stuff. I was like, wow, that's crazy.
They've sent a total of 1.4 thousand messages in the last 3 months. our top moderators. Yeah, it's one of the best destinations. Not that I'm biased or anything, but it really is a good community if you want to learn about Terra. So I'll post a link to it.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we've been spending money on. We're trying to find other ways to basically grow, provide value to the ecosystem. So
cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Shah, if you have one more second, I have another follow-up final question.
Yeah, what's up?
So if we were to, let's say, aggregate, $115,000 of people that wanted to invest in setting up an ATX DAO validator, if we can just kind of accrue the money, how much in terms of maintenance and actually having somebody run this and get it up to speed? If we just wanted to have this as a project and evidence of something that ATX DAO is doing, that somebody that's just getting into crypto and they want to learn, they could play with us basically. How many hours would it pay, or how many hours would it cost to pay somebody, let's say an intern, $30-$40 an hour to set something like this up and monitor it and stuff like that?
Yeah. So, it is.
Or is that just totally impossible to really put some numbers around? I'm just trying to vaguely size the possibilities for us if we can get the money together.
Yeah. No, so it is. So first of all, not to discourage you, but that 115,000, I think you were talking about the lowest validator.
Right.
And so that is 115,000 Luna that's delegated to them. So
right.
Yeah, so this is something maybe, I don't know, $17 million worth of value.
Right.
Now, not to discourage you, because I think you can, especially being a DAO and having a lot of members that can kind of all contribute in different ways, I think it's doable to get into that active validator set. And, when you've got whales like Joseph in your DAO, for sure, not a problem to get into that active set. But so as far as costs for running the infrastructure, it just depends on how much you want to spend and how robust you want to be. But I would say kind of on the low end, probably with the requirements for the hardware to run a validator on Terra right now, it's probably somewhere around $1,500 to $2,000 a month is what you'd be spending on server costs. And then just depends on how robust you want to be. And I guess the other thing is, so you can set up backup nodes that kick in, if your primary node goes down. But the problem is if something goes down in the middle of the night and you don't have 24/7 coverage, then one of the community validators had this issue the other day where their validator went down in the middle of the night. Middle of the night for the guy that monitors and runs their validators, right? And so then it took several hours until he woke up and addressed the situation, and then even then they still had issues afterwards. So we have a team that basically has 24-hour coverage that kind of takes shifts so that there's always someone awake that if our validator goes down, despite our redundancy, we can still get it back up in time. You kind of want something like that, but again, it's one of these businesses where you can put as much or as little as you want into it. Once you get the server set up and you have someone that has like a basic understanding of how they work and how to restart the nodes if when they go down, and you've got a little bit of redundancy, like it can become from the infrastructure side a set it and forget it to some degree type of thing, like once you get the hang of it.
Okay.
Enough. That makes any sense. So
Okay. So we'll just get $17 million together, and then the $2,000
and then you're square. So then you're
Okay,
set.
cool.
So I
It's good
think
to know the numbers.
I think so a couple of things to that note. One is they've talked about maybe getting rid of the Terra delegation program that Terraform Labs does right now, where they delegate like 1 million Luna to a bunch of these validators that meet that criteria. If they get rid of that, then I promise you the floor will drop to something like 10,000 Luna or 15,000 Luna, because a lot of those validators that are in that set right now, like the only thing they have going for them is they're getting that delegation from Terraform Labs. And so I think it becomes a moat for new validators like you guys to come in, and I don't like that situation. And a lot of us have voiced that opinion, and so they're very seriously considering getting rid of that program. And so if they do, it becomes a lot less of a hurdle for you guys to actually pop into the active set. And then I think if you guys have a presence at our event, for sure, and if you have a validator set up or you're getting close to setting up a validator, I think there's going to be for sure like some big Terra whales at this conference, and a lot of people from Terraform Labs. Actually, so I was in a meeting with Terraform Labs a week and a half ago, and they asked specifically for 200 tickets to this event because they're like, we're going to have at least 60 to 80 Terraform Labs members at the event, and then they wanted to have another 100 tickets to invite guests and stuff to the event. And so that's the weird quirky thing about this business is like you don't have to hit 1 million people. You hit one right person and you can be in that active set, or like in the middle of that active set, because that's how crypto works, right? There's whales that can just with one click of a button delegate 1 million Luna to you.
Nice. Well, okay, it sounds like Kyle's department. Awesome. Well, thank you, man. This was just such an awesome event today. Thanks, both of y'all, for setting it up.
Yeah, really, really honored and happy to chat with you guys. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, Shah. Good luck with everything, and hope to see you here in Austin.
Hey, thanks. Hope to see all you guys at our event if you can make it out, if you're not too busy with the other stuff going on that week, because it sounds like it's going to be a super crazy blockchain week. But yeah, definitely hit me up on Telegram if you guys want to chat some more. Happy to always chat about stuff, and very cool to meet you guys.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, you have a good day. Bye.
You guys.
See ya.
Thank you.